To you who answered the call of your country and served in its armed forces to bring about the total defeat of the enemy, I extend the heartfelt thanks of a grateful nation. As one of the nation's finest, you undertook the most severe task one can be called upon to perform. Because you demonstrated the fortitude, resourcefulness, and calm judgment necessary to carry out that task, we now look to you for leadership and example in further exalting our country in peace. And it's signed by President Harry S. Truman on White House stationery.
Bronze Star Medal Award, Private First Class John A. Fountain, Medical Department, United States Army, for heroism in action on February 2, 1945 in Burma. Under intense artillery fire, Private Fountain left his foxhole and voluntarily and unhesitatingly moved among the wounded, administered first aid, and relieved their suffering, and saved many lives. The courage and bravery of Private Fountain reflect great credit upon himself and the armed forces of the United States. One thing about Dad joining the service, we didn't find this out, of course, till much later, was him and several of his buddies got to graduate early from high school and went and joined the service. And they all went in different branches and stuff, but when they came back, their old high school football coach became the head football coach at the junior college. So they all went there and played together again. And I think that's just really amazing how you can come back from a war and be a man that he must have been and still play football. There are several things I found out through this research that I didn't know before. One, how my mom and dad met. She had some very good friends in El Dorado and came down to see them, and they fixed her up with my dad, and they met at church, and he started taking her to church every Sunday, and that's how that started. Something else about that I didn't know, I guess, about was my dad's mom and dad. My grandfather, of course, I never met either one of them, but my grandfather's name was Glenn Fountain. He died when my dad was only 11 or 12, tuberculosis, I think. And my grandmother, Doll is what they called her, died when my dad was in the service. I think he was 18. And of course he wasn't allowed to come back and go to her funeral or anything, so when he got out of the service, he pretty much had no one. Had great neighbors. I was always running around that neighborhood and was babysat by our next door neighbor, Mabel. After that, we moved to 2nd Street, very near to the Catholic Church where we went to school. Well, my dad had his first heart attack when he was 38, I believe. He was working as a manager at Prudential Insurance. So to remove some of the stress, we moved to Burns, and he got the job as vice president of the Burns State Bank. We all dreaded it, of course, but moving up there was probably one of the best times of my childhood. First thing he did, or one of the first things he did, was made friends around town, and the people that owned the, I guess the pool hall at the time, gave Dad a key so he would take us in there and shoot pool when there wasn't anybody around. That was great. But he really made a name for himself. He loaned a lot of money to a lot of the farmers up there, the Mennonites, and was very well loved and respected up there. Moved into a beautiful house that was owned by the bank that Dad, was able to move into. I remember the fireplace. It was wonderful, but I think the thing I remember most about that house was my dad bought a brand new remote control color TV, and I remember sitting on his lap just flipping through channels, and I don't know, there's only 3 channels back then, but we never watched anything for any length of time. And if you walk through the living room and jingle change in your pocket, you change the channel. It's a little bit crazy, but could really mess with my dad doing that. It's fun. We had a lot of good times. We were only about 3 blocks from the school, so we walked up there every day. He continued to coach us all through baseball and football, and when he was 46, he got pneumonia. Put him in the hospital in El Dorado. I remember going up and seeing him on Saturday, and of course they wouldn't let us in, but we were down on the ground level, and he was up on the 3rd floor. And he waved to us, and we waved back, and he was supposed to get out Sunday. And Sunday morning, I remember Mom came in, and John and I were sleeping in the same room, and she told us that Dad had died. And I was shocked and surprised, I guess. But the craziest thing about it was they just served him breakfast, and he was having a cigarette in the hospital. Everything, I guess, the things they know about cigarettes now, of course, a lot different. But the nurse left the room, came back in, and the cigarette was still smoldering, and he was gone, just like that, just gone. We didn't go through his stuff for a long time. We were all pretty young, and I remember going through it when Mom showed me, and all the pictures and all the articles of fighting in World War II and being a medic, and I don't know, I'll never forget how proud I was of that, and how I thought he was so crazy. The day before his 18th birthday, he's jumping out of foxholes and saving people and getting medals for that. And I'm astounded by it, I guess. I'm just astounded. I'm thinking when I was 18, that wouldn't have happened. I was so proud, and I really do think if I would have found it sooner, I don't know, I've done things different. Maybe I'd have joined the military, I don't know, but the pride in me was amazing. The pictures, the medals, being part of that Mars Task Force and Merrill's Marauders, all that stuff. When Dad died, I was 11, my brother was 13, my sister was 10, and my little sister was just 3, so she didn't even get to know Dad. I think one of the things I'm most proud of, besides maybe his service record and what a great father he was he's the only person I've ever heard of having 2 funerals in 2 different towns. And there were so many people at both of them, you could not find a place to sit. They had one in Burns, of course, and everyone came. I mean, everybody, all the farmers, ranchers, everyone that he had loaned money to and took care of. And of course, we had one in El Dorado, and all the people he knew from insurance and playing football there at the junior college when he got back from the service. I don't know, I just remember being so young and so many people coming up to me and saying,
"Okay,
oh, your dad was too young, too good a man," and all this. And I don't know, I think I was still just too overwhelmed by it all, but looking back, I couldn't have been more proud. One thing that John mentioned that I was real surprised at was Dad had all of his war and high school and junior college memorabilia in a box out in the garage. And when John was young, he stumbled upon it, was going through it, and Dad actually got mad at him, told him to put it all away, and it wasn't anything for him to see or anything he wanted to talk about. And by the time we got to see it again, we were well into our 30s, I think, and I don't know, I just really wish we'd have found that and got to talk to him about some of it. And I don't know, maybe he would never talk about it, but I don't know, I sure would have liked to have heard some more of the stories and heard at least some of the football stuff. And I don't know, I can't imagine him talking about all the things he must have seen as a medic, and I can't even fathom some of the stuff he must have seen and the lives he must have saved and the medals. But I'm sure he was really proud of it, but I think he just turned that off in his mind. I don't think he could allow himself to think about that and maintain the life he wanted to live.